What's up, guys? So we're here to talk about the P365 fuse, and we're gonna go ahead right off the scale. 1 out of 10, why I rate it as such, and then what SIG could do to improve upon the fuse. So let's talk about the fuse. Right off the gate, let's talk about the rating. I would have to say 6 out of 10. It does have a flared magwell. It does have great stippling on here. It does come optics ready with a blacked out front sight, rear sight, and a tritium front sight. And it's got a 4.1 inch barrel. So better velocity than the X Macro and the P365 XL, the X, and the P365. So in terms of, overall slim line, competition style, firearms that you can actually carry, this thing does take the cake. It does pretty dang well. Not to mention it's got a Picatinny rail, so you can mount a flashlight on there if you do choose to. And then, everything about this thing, the nice crisp trigger pull and the reset is positive. It's nice. And the reset doesn't force you to go all the way out there. It's right at the wall and you just pull the trigger again. I think that's fantastic. So, they also recess the slide release and the takedown lever, so you can take this thing out. They pushed all that back just a tiny bit, so it makes it easier for you if you have smaller hands. Not to mention, it does come with grips, and then it comes with 2 custom grips, so you can make this thing a little bit bigger if you need to, if you have bigger hands. For me personally, because I just have an aesthetic appeal for the stippling on here, I'm gonna keep it as is. Besides, it doesn't impede on my grip. I think the grip is fantastic the way it is. Even if you have bigger hands, I think you'll be just fine. And then it comes with a 17 rounder and 2 21 round magazines. All that to say that, not to mention, the slide cuts are fantastic. Look at these things. You could do a lot. This thing comes with so much, and then they even do try to slim up the weight on the slide so it isn't as snappy, just because of the less reciprocating mass. So with all that being said, why do I say it's a 6 out of 10? Why is it not higher? Why is it not lower? Well, the reason why it's not lower is because you got all these features and they execute it pretty dang well. First, the problem with this child right here is when you take it to a range day. If you're going there to train, typically you want to train with around 200 to 250 rounds, right? And you can't even do that with this thing. And that is the problem. That is the huge problem with this gun. Heat transfer is so poor with this thing that the front half, including the trigger, does get scorching hot. And I mean that literally, because I even burned my trigger finger where like this portion right here, it would get brown spots anytime I go to a range day with this thing. The only exception was the last time, because I had to get rid of some rounds. I've been using the critical defense rounds on here, and they ran perfectly fine. 700 rounds to this thing, 100% reliability, so that's good. But that was the only exception to where I didn't have to worry about my trigger finger. It was only 1 magazine, and I didn't have to worry about my trigger finger getting absolutely scorched. But when I'm shooting 200 rounds through this thing, it's not that bad when the slide gets hot. It's bad when the frame gets hot. And when the frame gets hot, where my thumb lies to, ensure that I do not have all that muzzle flip, it becomes a bit of a problem. Now, you could argue that if you rest your thumb on the flashlight, like I normally do whenever I have a gun that has a flashlight on it, I put my thumb on that flashlight and use that as a wedge. And that is so That way I can have flatter shooting. And I do that often. I practice like that. But the heat transfers onto the flashlight. This thing, after 150 rounds, transfers onto the heat transfers onto the flashlight, and I can no longer use the flashlight to shoot this thing because the heat transfer is so bad. And I think it all has to do with the fact that, you know, they did try minimizing the reciprocating weight on the slide, but now you're compromising by, you know, making it heat up a lot quicker. And also, let's talk about quality control, SIG, because I showed you a short of me taking the tritium front sight, the tritium out of it, and just throwing it off into the range. It's still not fixed, yeah, I know, but I have a flashlight in case I do need it, and you know, in the dark. So, you know, I don't really have too many issues with that. Just point, shoot, and yeah. Yeah. Please use better material, or if you're gonna use that, put a backing here, something that is clear, so that way it actually keeps it from melting and falling out. That is a problem for me. But I do like that the sights are raised, you know, so you can co-witness pretty well with this thing. But that's my complaint. It heats up. It melted my tritium front sight off, so now I'm out of a front sight. Huge issue, huge red flag. So on top of burning your finger, you're burning the tritium front sight off. Let's also talk about recent events with SIG, P365s, and that whole family tree. I believe it's the trigger shoe housing. I'm gonna cite it, and then I'm gonna put the caption there for you guys so that way you understand what I'm talking about. But eventually, after high round counts, let's say 1,500 to 2,000, some people have reported 10,000 rounds, and then it just snaps and then you have a dead trigger. I would have to say that is painting a bad picture on the P365, and I would have to say it's justifiable because these are common issues with the 365 family. Now, you're probably wondering with yourself, like, if that's the case, why are you buying a 365 fuse and shooting it? That's because I kind of got not pressured into it, but I was like, you know, I want a Glock 19. And he was like, well, you can get that, or you can get this, and it has a better trigger, and it holds more ammo, and it's a little more slim, and it's optic cut, you know, all these pluses. And I was like, but I really don't want a SIG, I want a Glock. And it was like, well, listen, I'm just saying, you're getting a lot more for this, and it's about the same price point. You're probably wondering, what's the price point for the Glock 19? At the place that I'm going to buy my guns, $650 is what it is for the MOS model. $730 for this one. I got it for $700 because it was on sale. So, with that being said, I bought it. And I used the money that I sold my 365 to get this. So I got like $300 off of that, used half of it on here, and then paid the rest in credit card. Pretty good. Not a bad deal, in my opinion. Do I worry about this thing having a dead trigger? Yes, of course. Like, there's no doubt about it. I don't want this thing to just up and die on me all of a sudden, and then I don't have anything to protect myself. Am I concerned with it happening at a low round count, kind of like 700 rounds? Not really. I would have to argue that if you're not within 1,000 rounds of shooting this thing, you're perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about it because SIG is not that bad where they're just going to be like, yeah, we know after about 500 rounds, it just gets a dead trigger. So yeah, we're just gonna put an $800 price tag on that, and we'll just go ahead and get that. And then there's people that end up buying it, and they're like, you know, these are all these issues, but it's a SIG, so it's not that bad. I don't think SIG is that dumb. Okay. Do I think they're retarded? Yes. Do I think they're that dumb? No. I would have to say SIG is pretty smart. They're smart enough not to cheap out too much. They do cut around some corners. I mean, look at the P320. They do cut around some corners, but overall, with the reliability on this thing, and it's only had 700 rounds through it, I am confident that this thing will still shoot, still go bang, since I haven't hit that 1,000 mark threshold. Now, I am going to go ahead and I don't want to really, but you know, for safety reasons, I do have to train with this firearm continuously. So 150 rounds of range day, not bad. This thing does get hot, but overall, I don't think, as long as I keep that round count low, I continue to clean it, and I continue to monitor it, I should be okay. I am confident that this thing will go bang every time. 60% of the time it works 100% of the time.
60% of the time it works every time.
So anyway, besides that, I would have to say 6 out of 10, not a bad gun. But there are some improvements that could be made with your quality control, SIG. 6 out of 10, not a half bad buy. If you find this thing on sale, get it. If you don't find it on sale, don't get it. That's just my personal opinion. This thing is questionable. Not this thing in particular, but just the family in general is pretty questionable. Just because of the controversies revolving around it. But I think SIG can recover. I think they can. They just need to fix their imperfections. And it all starts with this. Anyway, guys, with that being said, have a great day. God bless y'all. Love y'all. Have a good one.